Today is Tuesday, April 24th, 2012, and we are interviewing David Walker at the Illinois State Library. Mr. Walker is 62 years old, did we just say? 62 years old, having been born on February 7th, 1950. My name is Regina Corthals, and I'll be the interviewer. Mr. Walker, could you state for the recording what war and branch of service you served in?
I'm a Vietnam era vet, although I served my overseas time in Korea.
What was your rank?
When I got out, I was an E5, Specialist 5.
Okay, and where did you serve?
Initially, went to basic training in North Carolina, Fort Bragg, then to Fort Sam Houston for X-ray training, then to Korea, in the 121st VAC Hospital for a short period of time before I was put out to my permanent duty station in, Uijeonbu. And no, I can't spell it. Korea, and that's where I stayed the rest of my overseas tour.
Okay. So this question is, what was your job assignment? So
X-ray technician or radiological technician.
In like when people would come in?
Actually, we were there in Korea. I was working in a MASH hospital. Although after the movie came out, the Army changed the name so that they couldn't be associated with the movie. Instead of MASH, it was called SHMA, Surgical Hospital Mobile Army, instead of Mobile Army Surgical Hospital.
Oh. Okay. Did you see combat?
No.
Okay. Can you tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences?
I think my time in Korea was memorable. The country was beautiful. The people were very nice. Didn't see any action at all, although we were located within 10 miles of the DMZ between North and South Korea. The only military action at all that I saw was the remnants of a North Korean incursion where they tried to cross the DMZ. Needless to say, they didn't make it, but there was some South Korean troops injured, and we worked on them.
Okay. I take it you were not a prisoner of war then?
No.
Okay. Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Just the standard ones, the regular military, participation medal, the Korean medal, sharpshooter medal. That was basically it.
Okay. Can you tell us about staying in touch with your family?
That was interesting, especially overseas. I initially started contact with just letters, but I'm not a great letter writer. My mother came up with the idea of a little recorder, and they would send tapes, and I would try to do tapes, send them back, and that didn't last long either. But, we have a close family, but we didn't necessarily stay in touch during that 13 months I was over there.
Okay. So what was the food like? Do you remember?
The Army food or the native food?
Basically, I think, like, just your whole experience with the food. You might have had the Army rations. How you felt about those, or if you had some of the local, cuisine or whatever?
Well, we never used any, MREs or K rations or anything like that. We never left our facility, although we had the capability. We were assigned trucks, mobile equipment, tents, just like you see on the movie MASH. Mm-hmm. But we never bugged out, as they call it. We were in a standard Quonset hut facility, a brick cinder block hospital, the whole thing there. Ate basically food, from the chow line, and it was fine. Didn't have any problem with that. So, and the local food was kind of interesting, but
yeah. Was there anything particular about the local food you were just like?
Well, you had to be careful what meat you got, because a dog is a delicacy over there, and you don't see a lot of dogs running around because they get captured and eaten. They didn't have a lot of refrigeration, so if you went down with the local people to the markets. We would call it kind of a farmer's market type thing. You would have open air stalls with meat just hanging, flies and the whole thing. The food was good. You know, the natives, I say natives, but the
Sure.
Koreans prepared it very well. But you just had to be careful what you ate.
Did you have plenty of supplies there? It seems like you were in a
Yeah, weren't in a combat area, so
place where you
you
were.
know we had plenty of personnel. In fact, we were way overstaffed.
So you didn't feel any pressures or stresses too much?
No, it was actually a pretty laid back duty. We had so many people for our job position or MOS as an X-ray tech. There was 2 slots for that hospital. In other words, positions that they could fill. We had 5 X-ray technicians, so we would alternate. You know, it was not really a traditional 8 to 5. Being a hospital, we had to be on call, so we would alternate every third night. That person would be on call. Everybody would work in the morning because we did a lot of pre-marriage physicals, employment physicals, just everyday stuff. And then we'd alternate. Half the crew would work the afternoon, and the other half would take it off. So it was pretty easy duty, really.
Yeah. Did you have something that you carried around special for good luck?
No, not really.
Okay. How did you guys entertain yourselves when you weren't working?
Oh, played cards. We'd go. Didn't really have much of a movie theater there. We'd take off, as a group or, 3, 4 guys and go into town. If we had, longer time available, we'd go as far as Seoul and Busan. Did some interesting sightseeing in the country. Took a lot of pictures. I don't know if you want to get into the nightlife there, but
Whatever you want to talk, whatever your experience was.
The nightlife was interesting. You could get everything fairly cheap. You could rent a place off post if you wanted to get away for a while. It cost you maybe $20, $30 a month. You could take bus rides for pennies. The standard of living at that point when I was there, average income was $100 a year. So pretty much anything you wanted to buy, you could buy.
Were there any entertainers that came to see you or your unit?
We did have, not to our unit, but to another closer, larger facility. They had USO shows that came in twice during the 13 months I was there. I took a lot of pictures of that too.
What did you do if you were given some leave time?
Well, I didn't take any actual leave overseas. But, we'd have, long weekends or, just plain weekends. And we would basically do sightseeing, try to get out of the base because normally you're semi-restricted to base, especially if you're on call. But we just, would take trips to the nearest larger city, and Seoul was a good place to go. There was a lot of stuff to see, a lot of different restaurants, entertainment, and so forth. So.
Did you travel anywhere else with your time in the service?
I was, I spent my basic in Fort Bragg. After that, I went to San Antonio to Fort Sam Houston for my X-ray training. Did a little bit of sightseeing there. There's some neat things to see in San Antonio. From there, I went over, did my on-the-job training back at Fort Bragg. Tried to volunteer for Vietnam for the extra money, but for some reason they didn't accept it. And then ended up going to Korea. Spent 13 months there and then came back. I was supposed to go to Germany, although I was kind of nearing the end of my enlistment, and I didn't really, foolishly, I thought, well, I really don't want to go over there for just 6 or 8 months and then get out. So my real father was the housing director at McChord Air Force Base, a civilian position. And he called a friend of his who happened to be the command sergeant major in the Army in D.C. And he was able to get my location for my next duty assignment changed to Fort Sheridan up by Chicago, because it was about 3 or 4 hours from home. I'm originally from Wisconsin. And I got up there to my duty station, Took the weekend to go to an Oktoberfest party. Madly went back because I was going to be AWOL. Madly went back to Fort Sheridan and checked in and was told I've been assigned to Rock Island Arsenal. So I turned right around and drove back to where I had just left with all my stuff, and worked in a clinic essentially, and all we did was physicals, and it served a lot of civilian employees. And we had off-post housing that they paid for. We only worked 8:30 to 4:30. So I mean, my whole time in the Army was pretty easy.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
Oh, well, there was a lot of humor.
Well, and the second part kind of is this is what were some pranks that you pulled or others would pull? Was there any of that kind of stuff? You guys pranking or doing any of that kind of stuff?
None that I can think of. I mean, there was some instances where, would be not humorous. Um, the first time really, other than going to college from high school, you're thrown in with a bunch of people from all over the country in basic training, all different walks of life. And in that situation, the corporals and sergeants, they were gods. You had to do everything they said. And to be honest, that kind of scared me, because they didn't smile. They, was always yelling and, forcing you to do things. But basically after that, it was pretty much like college, going to the X-ray school. And the rest was, like I said, fairly easy duty.
Do you have any photos or anything you'd like to share or anything?
I don't have any with me. It was kind of short notice.
Sure.
Most of what I took actually is on slides, and I probably have over 500 slides of, Korea and some of the other places I stayed, mostly of Korea, though.
So what did you think of your officers and fellow soldiers?
It depends on the location. If you get into, like basic training, everything was strack. In other words, the uniforms were right, and everything had to be perfect and all this. You get into actual medical units, it's a lot more lenient because it's more professional. I'm not saying the Army isn't professional, but was more medically professional. As an example, we had a full bird colonel who was our commander of the hospital in Korea. And you would walk by the etiquette, you had to have your cap on when you're outside, and you have to salute when you're outside. You'd start to salute, and this colonel, and he would say, "Hey, how you doing?" He wouldn't salute back. Even though he was West Point, he was a very accomplished physician, and he was, I don't know particularly why he was in the military, other than probably sent him through education and so forth. But he was just a real laid-back, down-to-earth person, but very medically professional. The doctors that I served with, besides him, the radiologist that oversaw our department was a major. And to give you an example, he was there only because they had paid for his education and he needed to put in his time to compensate for it. Mm-hmm. And so he was not necessarily pro-military. I was and worked under him the whole time that I was there. And about halfway through my tour over there, we did a lot of TB screenings for marriages, employments, and so forth. And after a while, we worked so closely together that he had me pre-screen all the x-rays. And if there was a question or a problem, then I would give them to him. So, a lot of it, it's fairly evident when you've done it enough, what a problem is and what isn't. The other thing is, when it came time for promotion, and, naturally you keep an eye on when it's your time, when you can apply and so forth, and it has to come down from a superior. And since he was my only superior, direct superior, um, I asked him, I said, I can now, be promoted to the next rank. And he says, well, write me up a recommendation and I'll sign it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not normal. And on the other hand, you're talking about something kind of humorous. When I was an E3 when I went over there. I went up for my first promotion board shortly after I got there, and I thought, well, being very strapped, you have everything military, just being sharp. I switched from my regular glasses to the military issue glasses, and I put on the military issue watch, and did the whole thing, and I shaved, my mustache and the whole thing. I didn't, of course, have a beard then, um, and I didn't pass. And so I was kind of thought that was a little strange. So the next time I said, "The heck with it," I went in there with my regular watch and I started growing a mustache and my regular glasses, and I got the promotion.
Mhm.
So it just I know it's a matter of available spots, time and grade, and so forth that determines a lot of that. But I thought it was just kind of unique that I tried to be extremely military and didn't get it, and I just been every day and I got it. So
Yeah. Did you keep a personal diary?
no, I didn't.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
The specific day, no, I know it was in February.
Okay. Where were you then at that time?
I was at Rock Island Arsenal.
Okay. What did you do in the days and weeks afterward?
Well, for the first and only time in my life, I went on unemployment.
Oh, yeah.
And that lasted 2 weeks, and then I got a job. That's one thing I can say about the military, though, is the X-ray training that I received at their expense um, got me a job that I worked in Chicago in the Loop for a year and a half before I went back to college. And it also allowed me to work in 2 different hospitals while I was going to college.
Yeah, those are the follow-up questions. Did you work or go back to school, and did you use the GI Bill to get your education?
Yes, on all cases. I went to, since I was so close to Chicago, and I had a friend and his wife that lived in Chicago. Um, I talked with them, and they said, well, just stay here until you find something. So I stayed there for about 2 months until I had found something, got enough cash put aside, got an apartment. Um, After that, it was actually too early because I wanted to enter school again, but I got out in February. School that I wanted to go to didn't open again till fall. So I had to fill the time, so I thought I'd just stay there for a short time. Well, I stayed there for a year and a half and then said, I got to get out of here. I'm not going to leave. And then I went to school up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
And what did you go to school for there?
I had started out actually with a nursing degree, but ended up switching to business.
Did you make any close friends while you were in the service, and do you continue any of those relationships?
Yes, I made some good friends. I have not kept in touch with them after the first year or so.
Did you join a veterans organization?
No.
What career did you choose after your service time?
Went into sales, and that's what I've been basically in ever since.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or military in general?
Yes and no. I would say yes, it did, because I think it's a good thing for everybody, that can physically and mentally do it, to go in the military. I'm not saying that, I wanted them to go in during a time of war, but I think the regimentation, some of the things they do in basic training, breaking it down, building it back up to what they want you to be, builds character. And I think it makes a lot of people grow up.
Do you attend reunions at all?
Military reunions? I've never heard of any happening from my unit. So.
Okay. How has your service and experience affected your life?
It gives me a better appreciation, I think, of what the military does, even though I was not in an active combat unit. And I wouldn't have been anyway had I gone to Vietnam, because I would have been in a hospital unit. But still, it gives me a better appreciation of what you see on TV, both news, movies, documentaries, and so forth. And again, I think it's something that everybody should do. It really helps you grow up.
Right. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Not that I can think of. I know it's not a very exciting
No, it is.
term of service, but
Everybody's story has been different, and that's, I think, what they're kind of wanting to see. Just a cross of people with lots of different, you're all in the same era, the same stuff going on, and it's just all the different stories of all the different people doing all the different things that need to be done. So everything you gave us was wonderful.
I think one thing it helped when I got out of the service and I went back to college. A lot of the people that I saw in classes were, and I don't want to say below me or beneath me, but they just weren't mature enough. And you noticed when you went into the student union, you could find areas that older students were at. You could see most of it was the young kids right out of high school, but you could see, 2, 3 tables in one section of the room was all military, or at least older students, most of them military. And there was kind of a bond there because you'd all been in, you've all gone through it, and most of the other kids there are too immature to really know and realize that. And I think that was probably the nicest thing was the camaraderie ship between the military people. Even though we served in different places and different branches, you could relate to what they'd gone through. And I made some good friends there.
Good. Well, I thank you for taking the time to talk to
That's
us
it.
today. Yes, thank you.